Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is a romantic novel set in early 19th century England. It centers on themes of love, marriage, morality, social class, family expectations, and personal growth. The story mainly follows Elizabeth Bennet, the intelligent and spirited second daughter of the Bennet family, and her complicated relationship with the wealthy and reserved Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy. Through misunderstandings, pride, and prejudice, both characters undergo significant emotional development before ultimately finding happiness together. The novel begins in the quiet English countryside village of Longbourn, where the Bennet family resides. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet have 5 unmarried daughters: Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. Because the Bennet estate is entailed, legally restricted, to a male heir, the property cannot be inherited by the daughters. Instead, it will pass to a distant male relative, Mr. Collins, upon Mr. Bennet's death. This situation creates urgency for Mrs. Bennet, who is anxious to secure wealthy husbands for her daughters to ensure their future financial security. Marriage in this society is not only about love but also about stability and social position. Excitement spreads through the neighborhood when news arrives that a wealthy young man named Mr. Charles Bingley has rented Netherfield Park, a nearby estate. Mrs. Bennet immediately sees him as a potential husband for one of her daughters, particularly her eldest, Jane, who is gentle, kind, and extremely beautiful. Mr. Bennet, amused by his wife's obsession with marriage, secretly visits Mr. Bingley to introduce himself, ensuring the family's connection with the newcomer. At the first local ball, Mr. Bingley proves to be friendly, cheerful, and sociable. He quickly forms an attachment to Jane Bennet, dancing with her twice and showing clear admiration. However, accompanying Mr. Bingley is his close friend, Mr. Darcy, who makes a less favorable impression. Though handsome and extremely wealthy, Darcy appears proud, reserved, and dismissive. He refuses to dance with Elizabeth, declaring her tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt him. Elizabeth overhears this insult and forms a strong dislike for him, which becomes the foundation of her prejudice. As time passes, Jane and Bingley's affection grows. Jane visits Netherfield but falls ill after riding in the rain, and she stays there to recover. Elizabeth walks through muddy fields to care for her sister, which impresses Darcy, though he does not openly admit it. During Jane's stay, Elizabeth observes the behavior of Bingley's sisters, Caroline and Mrs. Hurst, who look down upon the Bennet family due to their lower social connections and improper manners. Caroline particularly disapproves of Elizabeth, sensing Darcy's growing interest in her. Darcy begins to admire Elizabeth's intelligence, wit, and lively personality. Although he struggles with his feelings due to her inferior social connections, he cannot ignore his attraction. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's prejudice deepens, especially after she meets Mr. George Wickham, a charming militia officer. Wickham tells Elizabeth a convincing but false story about how Darcy mistreated him and denied him a rightful inheritance. Believing Wickham, Elizabeth's negative opinion of Darcy strengthens. Another important figure enters the story, Mr. Collins, the pompous and self-important clergyman who will inherit Longbourn. He arrives to make peace with the Bennet family and, more importantly, to find a wife among the daughters. After briefly considering Jane, he proposes to Elizabeth. She firmly rejects him, valuing personal happiness over financial security. Mrs. Bennet is furious at Elizabeth for refusing such a good match. Soon after, Mr. Collins proposes to Elizabeth's friend, Charlotte Lucas, who pragmatically accepts him. Charlotte understands that marriage is her best opportunity for security, even if love is absent. Her decision contrasts sharply with Elizabeth's romantic ideals. The turning point of the novel occurs when Elizabeth visits Charlotte at Hunsford, near Rosings Park, the grand estate of Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Darcy's wealthy aunt. Lady Catherine is domineering, arrogant, and obsessed with social superiority. She expects Darcy to marry her daughter and to keep wealth within the family. During Elizabeth's visit, Darcy unexpectedly proposes to her. However, his proposal is filled with pride. He emphasizes the inferiority of her family and how he struggled against his feelings due to her low connections. Offended by both his arrogance and his role in separating Jane from Bingley, as she believes, Elizabeth passionately rejects him. In response, Darcy writes Elizabeth a long letter explaining his actions. He admits that he encouraged Bingley to distance himself from Jane because he believed her affection was not genuine and that her family's behavior would damage Bingley's reputation. More importantly, he reveals the truth about Wickham. Wickham attempted to elope with Darcy's young sister, Georgiana, for her fortune. This revelation shocks Elizabeth. She realizes that her prejudice against Darcy blinded her to Wickham's deceit and caused her to misjudge Darcy's character. She also acknowledges her own wounded pride and the unfairness of her earlier judgments. Elizabeth's perspective gradually changes. Later, while traveling with her aunt and uncle, the Gardiners, she visits Pemberley, Darcy's grand estate. Believing Darcy is absent, she feels safe touring the property. However, Darcy unexpectedly returns and behaves with courtesy, kindness, and humility. He is attentive to her relatives and demonstrates genuine warmth. Elizabeth observes how respected and loved he is by his servants and tenants, which further alters her opinion. She begins to see him as honorable and generous. Just as Elizabeth's feelings begin to soften, disaster strikes. News arrives that Lydia Bennet, the youngest and most reckless sister, has run away with Wickham. Such an elopement, without marriage, would disgrace the entire Bennet family and ruin the marriage prospects of all the sisters. Elizabeth is devastated, believing this scandal will permanently separate her from Darcy. However, unknown to her at the time, Darcy secretly intervenes. He locates Lydia and Wickham in London and pays Wickham's debts, arranging their marriage to save the family's reputation. He does this out of love for Elizabeth and a sense of responsibility, yet he does not seek credit. When Elizabeth learns of Darcy's involvement, her gratitude and admiration deepen into love. She recognizes the transformation in his character, his willingness to overcome pride and act generously. At the same time, Darcy's feelings remain constant, though now expressed with humility. Eventually, Bingley returns to Netherfield and renews his courtship of Jane. With Darcy's encouragement and a better understanding of Jane's true affection, Bingley proposes, and Jane happily accepts. Soon after, Darcy again proposes to Elizabeth, this time in a respectful and sincere manner. Elizabeth, having overcome her prejudice and recognizing her love for him, accepts his proposal. The novel concludes with multiple marriages that reflect different attitudes toward love and security. Jane and Bingley represent gentle affection and harmony. Elizabeth and Darcy embody passionate love combined with mutual respect and personal growth. Lydia and Wickham illustrate foolishness and shallow attraction. Charlotte and Mr. Collins show a practical, loveless marriage based on security. Through these relationships, the author explores the complexities of marriage in a society where economic survival often outweighs romantic ideals. The central themes of the novel revolve around pride and prejudice. Darcy's pride stems from his wealth and social status, leading him to judge others quickly. Elizabeth's prejudice arises from wounded pride and misleading information. Both characters must confront their flaws. Their growth demonstrates that true love requires humility, self-awareness, and the willingness to change. Social class is another important theme. The rigid hierarchy of English society influences nearly every interaction. Characters constantly evaluate one another based on wealth, family connections, and manners. However, the novel suggests that moral character and personal integrity are more important than social rank. Elizabeth's refusal to marry for money, even under pressure, highlights her independence and strength. Family dynamics also play a significant role. The Bennet family is loving but flawed. Mrs. Bennet's foolish behavior and Lydia's recklessness create obstacles for Elizabeth and Jane. In contrast, Darcy's sense of responsibility toward his sister reflects maturity and honor. Through these contrasts, the novel examines the impact of upbringing and parental guidance on character development. Humor and irony are woven throughout the story. Mr. Bennet's sarcastic remarks provide comic relief, while characters like Mr. Collins and Lady Catherine represent exaggerated social pretensions. The author uses satire to critique the rigid expectations of marriage and class during the Regency era. Ultimately, Pride and Prejudice is more than a simple love story. It is a study of human nature, exploring how misunderstandings and first impressions can distort judgment. It teaches that true understanding requires patience, reflection, and honesty. By the end of the novel, Elizabeth and Darcy achieve not only romantic happiness but also personal growth. They learn to balance emotion with reason, pride with humility, and independence with partnership. The enduring popularity of the novel lies in its relatable characters and timeless themes. Readers continue to connect with Elizabeth's intelligence and independence, Darcy's transformation, and the universal experience of overcoming prejudice to find love. The novel remains a masterpiece of romantic fiction and social commentary, offering insight into both historical society and modern relationships. In conclusion, the story follows Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy as they navigate pride, prejudice, misunderstanding, and social pressure. Through personal reflection and moral courage, they overcome their flaws and unite in a marriage based on respect and affection. The novel celebrates love that grows from self-knowledge and mutual understanding, making it one of the most cherished works in English literature.